Hey everybody, how you doing? There is a lot of talk about Jameis Winston joining the Browns, but there isn't much talk about what to expect from Jameis Winston in the Cleveland Browns offense as directed by Ken Dorsey. And so that's why I made this vlog, and I'm going to make another one in addition to it. But the bottom line is, first of all, who's Ken Dorsey? Real quick, Ken Dorsey is really best known as the greatest quarterback in Miami Hurricanes history. He set a number of passing records in an offense that was known for pushing the ball downfield. Then, after his time with Miami, Ken went out. He went to become a coach, was the offensive coordinator for Appalachian State for a year, and managed to get into the NFL with the Buffalo Bills, first as pass game coordinator, and then in 2022 he was elevated to offensive coordinator and produced some of the best years the Buffalo Bills had under Josh Allen, their quarterback, number 17. They were known for pushing the ball down the field, but contrary to the Saints offense when Jameis Winston was there and Sean Payton was the head coach, the style of the Bills offense wasn't classic Bill Walsh ball control. It was more like a kind of adjustment of what Ken Dorsey learned at Miami with the air raid style of offense, or really not so much just air raid style of offense, but the kind of style of offense that was practiced more like what Mike Martz brought to St. Louis in a number of formations there. In today's NFL, there's less of an emphasis placed on a particular approach. For example, you're not going to find people saying, well, gee, I only use the West Coast offense in Bill Walsh. The reality is that each and every offense in the NFL has some element of other offenses sprinkled in it. There is, in the case of Bill Walsh offense, every offense has it in the expression of progressions. First receiver, second receiver, and so on. And timing. Timing was Bill Walsh's gift to the National Football League. And timed passes, if they're not followed in each and every play, are at least expressed in some plays. And we can determine how well an offense is designed by the standards that Bill Walsh established. And then, of course, there's the emergence of the air raid, really particularly in southern schools. And it's part of this desire to push the ball downfield. And that's where we get Ken Dorsey. And so you would have to ask, well, hey, what does a typical Ken Dorsey play look like, right? And before we understand that, we got to go back to understand where Jameis came from, and that's the Saints offense here. And as you can see, these are 4 vertical designs, but even then, there's a direction, alerts versus the familiar 1 and 2 receiver progression style. And also, the diagrams are very precise. There is an attention to detail played in mapping out the play. What changed between what Sean Payton was doing and the Pete Carmichael style of the Sean Payton offense was this. I'll just say it succinctly. They brought in Derek Carr last year, the Saints did. They had Derek Carr, and as you know, they had Jameis Winston. And also they had other quarterbacks on the roster, people who had different systems, particularly with respect to Derek learning a new system and Jameis knowing the Saints system. But what Pete did in order to make it easier for Derek was redesign plays so that specific receivers were designed to get open versus certain coverages. As the difference was dramatic. rather than say, look at your safety key, look at where your safety is going to go, and then go here. And then if that receiver is not open, then you go to the second one, and so on. The Saints had shifted over to a more old style Tom Landry passing offense that predetermined one receiver would get open, and that was it. That's why we had the situation, if you remember, on, I believe it was Sunday Night Football, where Chris Olave was running really a clear out pattern. Derek realized that he really wasn't the primary receiver at all. He was actually supposed to throw to Taysom Hill on the out. And actually, not Taysom Hill, but Adam Troutman on the out. But he didn't. He overthrew by a country mile Chris Olave and then started yelling at him when, in point of fact, the ball was never intended to go to him. It wasn't. And so Derek was really bringing back his Raider training, which said, okay, I've got the guy going deep. He's my number one. And then number two, I drop down. He forgot that on a fly and just decided, well, I'm going to play out this and throw. And he missed. And not only that, he was being rushed. But he didn't make it any better by yelling at Chris Olave when he really didn't have to yell at him. Okay? That passing offense was designed so that Derek Carr could start over Jameis Winston, all right, and perform. Because they didn't have enough time for Derek Carr to really understand the Saints offense and what they were doing from a standard place where you're taking certain steps back, or really they use yards, which is another problem. And then you read the defense in terms of progression and movement. They wanted to make it easier for Derek. There are a number of examples where that's the case. Also, where Derek threw interceptions, because those plays were because of that old style of writing where you have to throw to that one receiver. Derek was caught having to throw to a receiver that wasn't open against the coverage that the Saints didn't expect. And so that created a lot of problems. The offense they're installing now is more like the offense that Derek played in with the Raiders under John Gruden. So that problem theoretically should be eliminated. Plus, Pete Mark Carmichael isn't there to have to make the situation better. Really, the Saints should have started Jameis Winston because Jameis knew the offense better than Derek Carr. But the kind of leadership dysfunction the Saints have gone through is such that what was produced was a situation I just described. Jameis is actually better off in Cleveland. And so what we're looking at in the Cleveland case, again, this is where Derek came from, but where Jameis came from. But where he is going now is where you can see the change just in this example I'm about to share with you right here. This is from a recent practice, the Browns. And that's number 5. He's got his college number, but throwing the out pattern and as well as his other quarterbacks. But look, they're paying attention, basically just getting their timing down and practicing on short passes. Even though Ken Dorsey has a reputation for pushing the ball downfield, a lot of these pass practices emphasize timing and ball placement in these OTAs and offensive installation exercises. Jameis, you see, takes the ball out of the shotgun. There's a pass. All of these, of course, to air, but the idea is what Ken Dorsey likes you to do is develop a muscle memory regarding how passes are thrown. And that has served him well. So also, there are other plays where the Browns have worked on a lot of unusual plays where receiver will go in motion on a jet sweep seemingly, and then at the snap of the ball will go back around. I saw one video I was trying to find around that one. Um, and so it's an offense that has two gunslingers, two great passers, Deshaun Watson, who's a starter, and Jameis Winston is backup. But so it's quite clear that Ken Dorsey is revamping his offense to take advantage of what these two great passers can do. But he's not, that doesn't mean he's going to take risks with the football. Not at all. He's a lot more careful than one would think, given how I originally described him as, with his Miami past and everything else. Take a look at this as an example of what I'm talking about. Here is a play from 2022 when Dorsey was with the Bills. And this is against the Chiefs. And it is a play that some people believe was one of the most lethal plays in the NFL. It comes from a trips set, trips, in this case, trips left, with the split on the right lined up on the 20-yard line, not split beyond it. So if we go and we look at the snap of the ball, we realize that the Chiefs are quickly in a man-for-man. They're not in a zone. We have a two-deep zone, but they're playing man under, okay? So look at the middle. Quickly you realize right here, the receiver is right wide open, right there. Mr. Davis, who runs a 4.5 40 second and a 40-yard dash. And he gets the ball. Note how Davis kind of plays his shoulder off, and then he makes his cut to the end zone like that, and he's wide open for the touchdown catch. Okay? So this is a classic Ken Dorsey play. It puts the receivers in positions where they are sufficiently spread from each other, and they isolate one player. Now the question is, what would happen if he wasn't open, and where would the ball go in this kind of play? And so if we go back here and we take a look at the back, we see the back delays and blocks and then goes out. So the answer is, well, the only other answer you'd have is in this play right here, right there. Do you go here or there where you hooked up? Because you have the back coming out here. You have this alley open. So you've got first and second. I haven't seen the diagram to confirm this. This is just the study of the film. All right. But it's a typical, well, I have to admit, well-designed passing game that doesn't get the quarterback in too much trouble. But this time, Dorsey's installing a number of short passes to complement the mid-range and deep passing that he's known for. I remind everybody that in 2022 and in 2023, the Bills were among the NFL's passing leaders. So you should expect to see that with the Cleveland Browns. That would be a story if that wasn't achieved. And the Browns can achieve that with Deshaun Watson or Jameis Winston. Let me get to some of your comments here. So, man, I wish the Raiders had signed Winston as Al Davis. He is. Jim says, I think this is a great move for Jameis Winston. Maybe even work with Jeff Garcia after I think Jameis Winston is a big NFL star. Shadow Band says, Bucks betrayed Jameis. He had 2,000-yard wide receivers after 11 games, played the rest of the season, but despite a shoulder injury. Yeah, but I don't, and I understand that you're probably a Bucks fan, but I look at the lost opportunity with the Saints. From there is not starting Jameis last year, and then the year before that, really just messing over him by trying to install more of a Mike Martz approach when the ball control passing of Sean Payton clearly worked. There are people who fall in love with Jameis' arm, and I think Jameis kind of, leads into that because he's used to a certain passing offense that he learned at Florida State and is not too dissimilar from what Ken Dorsey is installing with the Browns, although with some adjustments. It's not the classic ball control passing offense that got Jameis his best statistical year of his NFL career, and that was under in 2021 with Sean Payton. I favor that approach because I know that you can achieve the touchdown results as well. But says the Saints equally betrayed him. I agree, completely agree. So this is just a short presentation on what to expect. I'm going to do another one very, very soon. And I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you, Shadowban, and everybody else for your comments. Subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube and bookmark NFL News by Zenny62.com. You ever see my website? Let me show you our, since it's a company now and I share these things, website. And I'm going to go over right now so you can have a quick look at it before we shove off. And that is here. There it is. Right there. This grabs NFL news videos from YouTube and posts them as blog entries on NFL News by Zenny62.com. And as you can see, today's the 8th. This is current. This is today. The news today, the takes today. Live reaction to Mason Rudolph signing with the Titans. I'd like to see that one. And Patriots 53-man roster projections. It's all here. So bookmark NFL News by Zenny62.com. That is NFL News by Zenny62.com. As Shadowban says, it's lit. Thank you very much. Hey, man, it's lit because you're lit. See everybody later. Thank you.